See, that's what I like. I like to call him Professor. That's what I was teasing the audience with today. But once again, my brother, it's always good to see you. You're looking very Malcolm Cornell West today. What's that about? You running for something? That's right, you are. Yeah, we'll talk about that on another time. But anyway, good to see you, man, and always great to have a conversation with you, and love to hear about the activities that your wonderful organization, your church, and your congregation are a part of. As I was telling the audience earlier before you came on, is that, obviously I wasn't, my parents, we weren't members of St. Timothy, but St. Timothy is one of those kind of legendary fixtures in this community. And they've had, they had this, their pastor, Reverend Lowry, is just such an iconic figure, and those were big shoes to fill. But in the couple of years since you've been here and taken over, and I've gotten to know you, and I kind of watch you move, you've stepped up to the plate, man. And so I want to give you some props for that.
Oh, appreciate that. Well, I just do what I do.
Well, tell us about some events coming up that your church is going to be involved in.
Yeah, so we're another year.
Yeah.
We are at our revival,
Yeah.
And so October is our revival month, and so the vision or the idea for that revival month is every Friday. We call it Fire Fridays.
Yeah.
We have services at 6:30. So the first Friday in October, we have actually one of our own here in the city of Gary. So Reverend Edward Turner will be our guest preacher. And his choir and his congregation will be coming and fellowshipping with us. And of course, it's open to the entire community.
Right.
As he shares the word of God and as we worship God together. And then on the second Friday of the month, we have Reverend Reginald Williams. And he's from out of Illinois, actually. First Baptist Church of University Park, Illinois. And he's a colleague of mine. We went to school together, and we got our doctorate together.
Now, where'd you go to school?
Virginia Union.
Okay.
Yep. Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology.
Where's that, in Richmond?
That's in Richmond,
okay,
Virginia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be my adopted home state, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the school for preachers. Preachers from all over the place.
Oh, really?
Pretty much go there to get their masters and their doctorate from that seminary.
Yeah. So he's your second speaker.
Yep, he's the second speaker, and he'll be coming the Voices of Love, which everyone knows of.
VOL.
Yeah, VOL here in the city of Gary. I believe there are about 20 churches that are represented in that choir.
Yeah.
Close to 100 voices. Patrice Mack is the leader and director of that choir, and we have several musicians that are also involved with the choir as well. But it's a wonderful, when we talk about the community coming together, it's definitely a good example of a choir that comes together, and they sang it. They rehearse at St. Timothy every Monday.
I gotta drive by there because I live a sheltered life. Because I've heard of them briefly, but I don't know if I've ever heard them sing. But that sounds amazing.
Oh yeah, it's a marvelous choir, choir, and
it consists of people from all different churches.
All different churches. Mainly in the city of Gary. And like I said, we all come together, and we sing the songs of Zion, and we participate in different functions that happen in the city of Gary. And we've done some outside of the city as well, but mainly in the city of Gary. So they'll be the choir for the second night of revival. So we, spread the word about that. Then on third night, we don't want to.
Now these are all Fridays.
These are all Fridays.
Okay, so
Friday.
the entire month of October.
Every Friday. And so the third Friday we have dedicated to our youth.
Right.
Not just the youth of our church, but also youth in our community.
Right.
When I was in, elementary school, going into high school, my home church, which is Friendship Baptist Church in Riverhead, New York.
Right.
And the first lady there, Marian McElroy, she had a vision for what she called Young, Gifted, and Black. And so what she did was she pulled together all of her students and youth in the church and exhibited their gifts.
Right.
And so folks did from singing to poetry to spoken word. If they played an instrument, whatever their talent was or their gift was,
artwork,
whatever it was, they presented it on that night. So I took that concept and put it into a revival mode. And so in our revival, in the third night, we highlight the gifts of our youth who are in our churches. So be it St. Timothy, be it any other church in the city of Gary, and it doesn't have to be the city of Gary, but we focus on the city of Gary. So we did last year. We had a wonderful turnout. We had about, I believe it was 10 students from in the community that demonstrated their gifts. And parents came out and grandparents came out and families just came out to support. We had, I would say, about 300 people that showed up for our youth and as we celebrated them. And those that participated, of course, we always like to
bless people.
Yeah,
I know,
we're in that spirit of blessing, particularly our youth, to encourage them. And so each of them that participated received, I believe, a $25 gift card, just to encourage them to keep on, with their gift and not be ashamed of their gift. And you never know that really opens up youth.
Let me tell you something. What you're doing, what you're describing, we need more of it. And you just gave an example about how it impacted you. And right now, nowadays, I think young people sometimes we're kind of always talking about their lack or what they're lacking. And absolutely. So anytime you can get a little bit of spotlight, I don't think that's harmful at all, in particular at a very young age. And so I give you credit for doing that, and I'm sure it's really made an impact on these young people. And they take that attitude into other areas, like their schoolwork and things like that, because they become prideful. They don't want to go, not negatively, you know what I mean, not that kind of pride, but when you feel good about yourself, when you're being told and reassured that you have talents, then it makes you conduct yourself and carry yourself in a more respectful way. So I think what you're doing is a very positive thing. Good job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think the point of that, even with myself, I think the church is the foundation, right? I think that's where, and there's some studies and statistics out that they say that youth who really are involved in some sort of church life become really more successful. And I think it's very important because those skill sets that we learn, not only in school, but I think they're really learned in church, church life. When we talk about speaking in front of public, right? I was that kid that didn't, in the background, I'm quiet.
Did not like public speaking.
Not public speaking. I actually stuttered when I was a kid. So I was afraid, even that, the embarrassment of that. But then having tutors and having people to really work with me, and my mother and grandparents that were there, making sure I got the skills set and tools I needed, and then the church. My pastor, the late Reverend A. Charles McElroy, he was famous for calling us young people out and having us come up and read the scripture in front of everyone. And I used to be so mad, like, why does he keep picking on me? Not to know years later that I'll be, leading a congregation of 500 folks, and being inputted in different organizations and speaking in public and speaking to people. And being a professor at a college, so
it's just amazing.
Who would have known all this, right? And so I contribute that to my foundation in the church and those leaders and those men and women who saw something in me and in all of our youth in those days to contribute their services and their sweat and tears, if you will.
Let me ask you this, because I want to stop on this point, because I think you're kind of going into the broader, because I wanted to ask you, kind of a broader view. We weren't going to kind of get into the trenches or get political, but you and I have had conversations about the state of religion in particular, like in this country. And when you brought up the children, I really kind of felt something there, because when we kind of look around and we look and see a lot of the things that are happening in our communities, I'm not going to, like I said, you saw the situation that happened. I don't know if you saw what happened in Center City, Philadelphia last night with the rioting and then, of course, the teen takeovers and things like that in Chicago. And you start to listen to the music, the culture, the degradation. Is it time now for the church to become more assertive? I mean, because it does seem that in particular in our community, I'm just going to speak to the black community per se, that a community that is kind of very much aligned with its churches and its pastors and preachers are very prominent individuals in the community, but yet and still it does seem that the church has kind of taken somewhat of a passenger view versus back into, let's say pre-civil rights and things like that, when the church was actually setting the tone in the community for what the moral values were, what the conversations were. Is it time for the church to kind of reignite itself?
Absolutely. And I think that we become more relevant when we do.
Yeah.
And my position, I know even for my own church, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that is worthwhile, for the end, right? End result. And so I think it's getting to the congregation and just as a whole, not just St. Timothy, just Black church period,
right?
That our youth have a voice, and they're speaking their voice through their swag, through their language, if we agree with it or not, right? And through how they're conducting themselves as well. So the question then is, as the church, how do we begin to adhere to or just listen to the voice that's arising from our youth, and not just say, hear our voice, and this is what you ought to do, and this is how you ought to do it. And I think times are changing, and as times are changing, I think we have to kind of roll with the times as they change. Not saying the gospel changes, right? The message is always going to be the same, but I think it's the methodology and how we respond to crises and how we respond to the voice coming from our youth. And I think that's where we are right now. And young people I have talked to either through the Juvenile Detention Center, which we do a mentorship program there, and or through my classes as I teach as well, and that's and what I'm hearing or the voice I'm hearing is that no one's paying attention, no one's really listening to what we are saying.
Now let me ask you this, and this I guess is going to expand into like a theological question, which you are a lot more qualified to kind of talk about this than I am. But I've always wondered this because I always kind of tell the audience that every once in a while, I'm not a follower, I'm not a member, I'm a Christian, but every once in a while, I find myself kind of recharging my batteries, as it were, by really kind of going through and reading a lot of doctrine and listening to speeches from Louis Farrakhan. I just do. It just kind of centers me up, keeps me from getting, extreme one way or the other. But the one thing I remember, and I saw this when I went to Tuskegee, because at the time his daughter went there, and there was a big presence of the Nation of Islam, or Fruits as they were called. And there was kind of more of a discipline than what we see more or less in Christian churches. Like the conversation you and I were just having a second ago, in which we were talking about listening to young people and listening to what they have to say. Well, there's a place for that, one can say, but then there's also kind of like bringing young people up to learn. I mean, I was listening to this young lady. This is a totally different conversation, but I was watching a woman address the school board the other night. This was, I believe, in New Jersey. And she was railing against the school board for talking about, kids and what they're saying and things like that. She was like, listen, there's a reason they're called guardians. And that is because they depend on the people with the fully functioning brains already to lead them in the right direction, to protect them and to things like that. And so getting back to what I was asking about the church, has it adapted itself a little bit too much? Is it too flexible? Because once again, we can go back just maybe 20, 30 years when, in particular in the Black community, the church, the church people, the church, the pastor, he was very compassionate. But the church was adamant against teen pregnancy and a lot of these things, and drug use and alcohol addiction and all these kind of things playing into the vices. It seems that like I said, it's become more of a passenger in the car now.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, and so I think and I can just respond, based on my theology.
Right. Yeah. I'm just picking your brain.
Yeah, that's fine. You didn't give me a script before I came, so I understand. I got to kind of think off my.
You're great. This is what you do. You're a smart man.
I mean, I try my best. But I would look at it more as when I look at things that we have to address as the church.
Right.
Of course, we look at it from a theological perspective. But I also think that we have to look at it at the reality.
Right. Right. That's fair.
Where things are, where we are. And I think when we look at the mission of Christ, the mission of Jesus, that he looked at the reality of where people were and met the need, and then he came with the gospel.
Right. No, very good answer.
Right. So I think that when we look at things as far as looking at an individual, and I always talk about the wholeness of an individual. And I teach this in my class. We talk about social justice.
Yeah. We
look at the whole totality of the individual. We're looking at the mental, you're looking at the social, right, the physical, and then there's the spiritual piece. And so those are the four pieces that I see when we talk about the the wholeness of an individual.
Right.
And there ought to be a balance.
No, you're right, because you know, I'm thinking about what you're speaking to, because you know, when we're talking about, like, right now, suicide and it is really at an all-time high, and I'm just talking about people just out of nowhere just deciding that there's just no way to continue. And you know, one of the things that I think that really makes Christianity one of the more popular, attractive religions is because, you know, through the grace that you can literally come and wipe your slate clean. You don't have to run around with that guilt and things like that. And so I guess going back to the original question, does the church need to go out here and assert that nobody's judging you? You can you don't have to carry the burdens of whatever you've done or whatever you were into. That's the beauty of the wonderful religion of Christianity.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I think that it starts with that it's not just saying it, but we have to also do it ourselves.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a combination of both. And I think when the church begins to rise up and say, I'm not judging you.
Right.
And the reason why I'm not judging you is because I've been there. I've done that myself. I've gone down this road myself. And this is where I am in society. So I think that it has to do with that whole piece of not just pointing the finger, but also...
But opening for an embrace and a hug.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then here's the other piece of this, which, you know, I think in church as a whole, I even go forth to say, even black folks as a whole, is that sometimes I think we do justice to our own selves.
Yeah.
And we pull ourselves down or pull each other down.
Yeah.
And so when you have leaders who are rising up to address injustice or to help the community or to do things, you know, you find people who are, I don't know if it's jealous mode or what it is.
Yeah.
But they do things or find things to, you know, discredit people and pull folks down rather than to say, you know, we all in this together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's actually the theme of the revival. We're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, and I think that we have to be reminded as a people. I was having a conversation the other day, and it was said to me, they said, Rev, why is it that it seems like any other race seems like they're further ahead and they're working together, they're more unified? You
must be listening to this show.
And why is it that we as black folks cannot get ourselves together?
Right.
You know, and there's so many different perspectives and issues that kind of, you know, have to unravel that thought, right? That there's so many different aspects to why is it that we as a people can't unite ourselves and really move forward in the things that not only help us as a race, but help us as a community and as a society as a whole. I got my theories on that. Tell you what, you mind taking a quick phone call? Sure. Caller, you're on. You were talking with Dr. Jackson from St. Timothy. What's going on? Hello? Yeah, I can hear you. Speak up.
Okay, my question is,
Can you hear me?
in a community like here, we got over 410, I'm not going to say just churches, but how could you say, faith, churches, people that just have a ministry or what have you, in a city like here. When you talk about unity, where is the unity in the churches that we got to have a church on every corner? We got to have everybody that wants to be a pastor. But when it all boils down to it, and we look at the church like right now, the Christian community, we are embracing homosexuality, even in the church.
Okay. All right. Let me give them an opportunity to answer. I guess the number one to start off the first part is, you know, that has always been kind of a question. And I'm sure you can appreciate this coming from New York, is that, you know, you used to go into the black community and there might be one or two churches, but they were prominent. And so, and that kind of was where people went. And, you know, this was a place of congregation, also a place of spiritual renewal. And it seems like nowadays you have fractured relationships where people come from different churches, decide they want to start their own show, and they'll literally go around the corner and down the block, and now you've got another church that has got, you know, that is operating. You have all these different spiritual institutions that are kind of teaching the same thing, but are doing it differently. And he's asking, why is that? Why is there seem to be so much division?
Well, I mean, we have to go back historically, right? So, you know, again, as you pointed out, you know, when we talk about the black, particularly the black church, you had a prominent, either one or two churches within a black community. And then over time, as history has gone, it shows us, you know, that when someone disagrees with something, and you know, they pack up and they start their own church. I can you know, bear witness of the church I came from in New York.
Right.
So, and this is, and I'm using New York because that's, you know, my experience.
That's your background.
And I've been here in Gary for like 5 years, but as I've traveled throughout the United States, I mean, you know, it's the same in every community. Where you have a few churches that have started off, and then there was some sort of disagreement, you know, and then the church breaks off, right? And so folks there'd be a church split,
right?
And that church split, then they'll start another church. So, for example, the church I came from, the home church was First Baptist Church. It was the prominent Baptist church in Riverhead. There was some sort of disagreement that happened amongst the congregation, and the church split. So Friendship Baptist Church came out of First Baptist. So now you have two churches.
Right.
And now, as we speak, there are 3 other churches that have come out of Friendship that have started. So, and that trend is that happens throughout, you know, different communities.
Does anybody ever, like, when you all kind of get together, I mean, you know, has anybody ever kind of sat and maybe kind of opined on this? Because, you know, when I look at that, or when I kind of hear you describe it, and I'm looking at it in my mind's eye, this would be the equivalent of one of the 12 apostles deciding that they want to take their, you know, Jesus is getting all this little run. It's time for me to get my own act, and I want to start my thing. And then another apostle says, well, why did he get to do it? And I want to go in. And now Jesus is down to maybe one buddy that's hanging with him.
But I think it's the mentality of our race. I really do believe this. This is my opinion.
Okay.
And I say that because it doesn't matter what aspect or where we serve, what organization we're in.
Right.
If we're in this organization and something we don't like or we disagree with, instead of meeting at the table and having discussion and talking about it and working it through, we pack up and we leave.
Right.
And we start our own thing.
Yeah.
And so we have done that. Now, I'll make reference to, let's say, the Catholic faith, right?
Yeah.
Now, how many Catholic churches do we have in the city of Gary?
I know St. Monica, St. Luke.
Yeah. And the
because I'm Catholic,
Well, the point I'm making is that, you know, with the Catholic tradition, they will not set up 15, 20 churches.
The diocese wouldn't allow it.
That's the point I'm getting at. And so I think that what we allow as as not only just a race, but what we allow as an institution. When we talk about the church, we allow these things to happen where it gets out of control, where we are, you know, 500-600 churches, in one city. Then here's the other piece, and here's my corporate business mind, right?
See, this is why I like talking to you.
Here's my corporate business mind, where, you know, when a business is struggling or not being able to stay in existence, then they downsize or they partner up, you know, merge with another company, right? And so what should be happening, really, you know, as our city is kind of, you know, population-wise has gone down.
Right.
So why doesn't the churches get together and say, you know what, we don't need...
We know the answer to
20 churches.
Yeah.
You know, let's pull together and unite ourselves and just have this one church or these two churches as it relates to denomination and what have you. But, you know, of course, everyone wants to lead.
Everybody wants to lead, and everybody wants to have that plaque on there and be called pastor. And we understand. We can appreciate it.
And we can appreciate that. Everyone has their own calling, their own ministry, which is fine. I'm not, you know, tearing that down. What I'm saying, though, is that I think that it's going to come a time where God is going to respond. Right?
Absolutely.
And I think that God responds based on what we're producing as a congregation, as a church, as a ministry, as a people. And I always say that you know, the fruits, your calling is based on the fruits of your labor. And so when I see the fruit, I can tell that the Lord's hand is upon you, right? That God is working on this ministry, or on this pastor, or on this church, or on this organization, whatever it is. Because there's fruits coming from this labor. And from that fruit, people are benefiting from it. Right?
I like that.
Society is benefiting from it. Community is benefiting from it. You know, our youth are benefiting from it. So I would just look at, you know, if we have organizations or even ministries, I'm not going to label it just to churches, or even organizations that's just existing, right? But not producing anything. There's no fruit coming from that organization or church that is benefiting our community. The one has to question, why are we existing?
Now let me get to the second part of this question quickly. Then I want to get back to this wonderful revival that you've got going on at St. Timothy for the next month. And I think it's going to absolutely be, quote, fire. So I want to get to that. But let's go ahead and finish the second part, because you and I were really opining about that at the beginning, that kind of where we're just talking about this perception that the church has become a little bit too elastic. And he kind of brought up homosexuality and things like that. But, one can argue that the church has a basic set of tenets. And you just alluded to it earlier. You said the gospel doesn't change. And so when you see churches that kind of start to get a little mum on whether it be, and we're not picking on same-sex marriage, but let's just even talk about things like marriage. I mean, having kids out of wedlock and a lot of the things that have kind of been a running theme, and then all of a sudden you hear the church kind of absent on it because they want more bodies in the seat. As we remember, there's a drop in religion, and particularly among young people. Does that kind of destroy the credibility of the church, or said church? Because obviously we have these hardline churches that make it very clear where they stand. They're called right-wing, they're called extremists. And then there's that more modern church that is very flexible. And we get it. I understand it, to be honest with you, because young people are just not into religion like our parents and our forefathers were. So you have to go out there, as you said, meet them where they live. But do you somehow taint what you are supposed to be doing in the process?
So that's very impactful. So let me try to unpack it in a few different responses. So one is, I always try to be transparent.
Yes.
So growing up in my home church back in New York, it was very traditional Baptist church.
Right.
My pastor, he's deceased now, but in the constitution of the church, it's written that if you had a child out of wedlock, you have to come before the church and you have to confess your sin.
Yeah.
So I came up in that era.
Yeah.
And so my first child was out of wedlock.
Right.
So the deacons approached me, the pastor approached me, and some other leaders approached me that I had to come before the church.
They're about to put you on blast.
Yes, and so I'm one of those rebels where you got to show me in the Word,
right.
Of God, where that says to do that. I hear what the tradition of the church is. I hear what the Constitution says.
You was like, show me,
but show me in this Word that you say that we're supposed to be living, that it says to do that.
I can respect that.
And I was 19 years old. I'm 45. I turned 46 in December. So anyway, back on track. But yeah, so
there's always time for a birthday shout out.
Yeah,
no shame.
So many people try to come to me, and so I had a come to Jesus meeting, with my pastor, and I said, look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful of any sorts, but I said that, this has pushed me, though, to read the Word for myself. Right. And so I dived into the Word of God, and I found nothing that indicated that I had to come before sinful people.
Right. And
confess my own sin.
Yeah.
And so, when I brought up some scriptures dealing with the grace and mercy of God and how we ought to confess our sins to Him, and then Bible says that we are saved, right?
Mm-hmm. You're like, why do I need to come up in front of the congregation?
Yeah, right, exactly. And so my pastor, he heard me, he listened, and they left me alone, they left me alone. But what it did was, it set this precedence, right? And so it said, and one of the things I also said was, why are we just pointing out this one sin?
Right.
Well, there are a whole lot of sins. I said, matter of fact, let's talk about...
You one of them smart Alex, aren't you?
Yeah, let's talk about the fact that you have a deacon on your board that's beating his wife. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about it. If we're going to expose one sin, let's expose it all. That's how I was at 19 years old.
Right.
And he was quiet. It was dead quiet. And the reason why it was quiet was it was truth.
Right.
You see what I mean? It was fact. It was truth. And meanwhile, no one's disciplining or holding that person accountable.
At what point were you escorted out?
But I wasn't, actually. I guess that was the spirit of boldness that
I love that, man.
But what it did was it set a precedence for those who came behind me, who may have sinned and messed up, if you will, made a wrong decision under the passion of whatever.
You made a mistake.
Right? Yeah, and so it caused the church to look at. They didn't change the rule of the church.
Right.
However, they did not press the issue for that happening. And I've had people that come behind me that did the same thing, and they say, "Oh man, thank you so much for stepping up and speaking out, and because it helped us, it helped me." kind of thing.
That was the best story ever.
Yeah. So I mentioned that when he says, like, homosexuality, whatever the case may be, whatever the issue is, the church is supposed to be there. I call the church, as my pastor would always say, a hospital. Right. And so it's a place where we all come to meet whatever need that we have from God. Right. And to work out our own salvation. It's not for you to work out my salvation. It's for me to work out my salvation. And so my stance as far as the church is concerned is that I don't care who you are. I don't care what your lifestyle is. That's not me to care, as far as judgment. What is for me to do is, as a Christian, is try to live my life the best way I can and be the example that I can. I'm not perfect either. Right. But to live the best way that I can, to set that example, and to encourage others, to do the same. Right. And so I think it becomes an injustice to the church when we put labels and we don't embrace people, because Jesus, the bottom line, was inclusive, and I believe in an inclusive gospel that is for everyone, no matter who you are, right? No matter what your background is and what lifestyle that you are living, because none of us who are living on this earth is perfect. If so, then you ought to be God.
I mean, once again, that was the best story ever. I'm going to kind of end this conversation and ask this, Dan, because I know you got to get moving. Then what does it mean? So if a non-Christian or a non-religious person was listening and they were hearing our conversation, and even from the caller, then what would be the reason, or what would be the purpose of being saved? Why would I come to the gospel then if, basically, everything's up for grabs or willy-nilly?
Well, I teach this in even my social justice class when we talk about, because I deal with theology and social justice, yes. and it meshes together. And so we look at social justice through the lens of theology. Theology meaning the lens of your faith. Right. Right. And so I'm not the type of person that is going to put my faith on anyone, right? But I can surely share my faith, and it's really up to you as an individual to be able to embrace whatever my faith may be, if you want to embrace that, if that works for you. Right. And so,
but aren't you to a degree an instrument by being you're a pastor? I mean, you're out in front. I mean, you're doing the work. You're ministering. Aren't you tasked with putting your faith out here onto people? I mean, it's up to us, obviously, to take it or leave it, but you're the vessel.
Yeah. And so, again, I don't look at it as putting it on people. I look at it as, again, being that vessel. Yeah. And it's up to you if you want to embrace the vessel. Okay.
That's fair.
Or embrace the information that's pouring out of the vessel. But I believe, again,
you're the water. You can't make me drink.
Yeah, I can't make you drink, but I can certainly bring it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really up to you to decide, because it's a personal thing, to decide if I'm going to draw from this well.
Yeah.
This well of living water. Am I going to draw from this? And if this is what I need in order to survive and to make it, and so forth. So, I think that's what revival is all about. Yeah. And I think revival is really looking in our own selves and seeing what is it within me that I think I need to change or do better in, so I can be a better person. If I'm a better person, then my community can be better. People who I come in contact will be better because I'm better. And so that's why I really think this revival this year of we're all in this together is just that as we continue to live life and live who we are and what God has called us to be in this society, what are we doing to better ourselves, to better others, to then better the community? And so then the closing of the revival is, celebration. We're gonna have our concert. Yeah. Our gospel artist this year is J.J. Harrison. Yeah. And Youthful Praise. Okay. So they're coming out. You can Google them on YouTube. All of their songs and stuff is that. Most people know "You Deserve It" is the popular song. Right. But we encourage you to come out. We have our tickets are on sale as we speak. Okay. You can go to Eventbrite and purchase your ticket, or you can call St. Timothy Community Church at 219-977-0079. Again, 219-977-0079. Or you can visit our website as well, sttimothychurch.org. Yeah. And we'll certainly, be able to, assist you with that. Our general tickets are $40. Okay. Our VIP, if you want special seating, that's $50. And then we have our reception.
I was about to get there because you've been dancing around this. So we've had some very deep conversations, but now we got to get to the meat and potatoes. Yeah. What kind of food you having?
Yeah, you have to eat before you go to church.
Exactly.
So we want to provide a meal certainly for you if you desire that. It's $75 for the VIP with reception. We're going to have some fried fish. You know, everyone loves our fish.
Oh, yeah. It is Friday.
Yeah, it is Friday, so we have some fried fish. We're going to have some chicken, and then we'll have collard greens and some yellow rice. And some peach cobbler, and of course, you know.
Now you're serving this before the sermon. What you want people going to sleep?
This is before the concert, and well, you don't want folks hungry either. Your stomach growling.
You're gonna have a lot of people nodding off. Collard greens and yellow corn. What you trying to do?
All that music and stuff is going to keep folks motivated and excited and engaged.
With full bellies.
Yeah, so, but we encourage you to be a part of that. You know, spread the word. We want to, you know, this is an opportunity as we celebrate our church and celebrate our community. Yeah. And bringing together the community. And I really try to do certain events throughout the year to really bring together our community, the city of Gary, together, so we can.
Because the book bag giveaway is the bomb.
Yep, we just had that in August, and we serviced over 200 kids with book bags.
Yeah.
We gave out about 15 laptops. Yeah, because you know our students need technology and while in school, so we've done that, and all that based on donors from our church and from folks in the community as well. So you know, I just think that again, when we all come together and work together, we can produce more. Man,
let me tell you something. I always enjoy it. I mean. First and foremost, I want to thank you for kind of indulging me. You're very thoughtful. You're a very thoughtful man, and I can see the academic in you when we have these conversations. So your students over at Calumet College are absolutely winning right now by being in your class. Also, your congregation. I mean, they're really blessed to have you because, like I said, you're very transparent, very honest, you're very thoughtful, and like I said, I want to appreciate you for kind of having that conversation. I think the audience does as well. I want to remind folks, though, to go and check out this wonderful revival every Friday in the month of October. And as you said, the theme is what?
We're all in this together.
And you heard him talk. He means that. So definitely go out there and support. Tickets are at Eventbrite, $40, regular price. VIP, that means you get the
special seating.
Special seating when you eat those collard greens and that chicken and that fish. So go. That's what is that? $75.
$75.
It's worth it. So go out here and purchase that. So with that, my man, I want to thank you once again. Look forward to talking. What class you got? What time's your class?
10:15.
Oh, you're gonna be pushing it.
Oh no, it takes about 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. You're admitting a sin. You drive fast. We're gonna get ready to wrap it up. We're gonna get ready to get out of here. We got the YWCA coming up next.